Next method will be called isSubmitted. So after the last one, a few new lines. And we start with the public function isSubmitted. We pass in one parameter, ID. By default, it is null, obviously. And now we check if is an empty ID. And then we check if this object db equals null. Then we want to connect first. So this connect. Then we go for found. And we go for this get by user, and we pass the ID as parameter. So the method we created in the previous video, if it returns obviously a value, that means that it has been submitted, otherwise it wasn't. So the return will be is an empty found, then true, otherwise false. So that means obviously that it is submitted. Obviously, if ID is empty, then we want to return true so that the statement doesn't proceed anyway. So that's our isSubmitted method. The next one we're going to create is called addRating. So this is actually where we add in the rating to the database. So public function addRating, and we're passing ID by default null and rate by default null as well as two parameters of this method. Now if is an empty ID and is an empty this underscore user. We cannot check whether the rate is an empty because rate will have 1 and 0. So if it's 0, then obviously that would obviously cause the problem here, because empty 0 for empty is obviously returning true. So we're not going to be checking here for rate, because rate, if it's going to be 1, then it's going to be 1, otherwise it's going to be 0 anyway. And this is what we're going to check in just a second. So inside of this statement, if this object db equals null, then this connect. Then we have our rate, which is what I've just explained. Rate equals rate. If rate equals 1, then it equals 1, otherwise equals 0. Then we go for our SQL statement, which will be insert into, and we go for our table, this underscore table underscore 2, and the fields user, item, and rate. Then we have values, and we put 3 question marks there as a placeholders for our values. Then we go for statement equals this object db prepare, and we pass in our SQL statement. Then if statement execute, and we pass the parameters, so array, and inside of the array this underscore user, and the next one is ID, and the last one is rate. So if this has been executed successfully, we do something, otherwise we return false, and we also return false if obviously ID or user is empty, so return false here as well. But if it's all good, then return this update rating ID and rate. 2 parameters. Update rating is the method we're going to be working on in the next video. So yeah, let's move to the next video.